In the best case scenario, an infant and toddler responds really well to the early intervention services that they're receiving by their state agency, and they don't qualify for any special education services in their local education agency or their local school district. As we know, Jen, it doesn't always work out that way, and toddlers and infants continue to be at risk and or are suspected of having a disability. So what is the next step? Well, the next step, depending on your state, and it might be at 3 years old, it might be at 5 years old, and each state is very different, your toddler or infant then becomes ready to go to the local education agency or the local school district. And we'd like to talk about that.
So typically what happens, Julie, is that the state agency that's responsible in your state for providing those early intervention services contacts the school district, the local educational agency, and says, we're working with a child who's receiving early intervention. The student is about to age out, meaning that they're no longer going to be eligible for early intervention services, and notifying that local school district that, in fact, this might be a child who's eligible for special education and related services under the IDEA. And it's important that you know that's not a guarantee. The referral is just notifying the school district that this child might be eligible, but the school district will assess whether or not the child meets the eligibility criteria under the IDEA for being entitled to receive special education and related services now that they're school aged. It's not a definite, so the whole evaluation process is supposed to begin at that point as well.
And you know, you said an interesting thing. You said that the school district is supposed to evaluate, but I have seen the case where the school district doesn't do sometimes their own evaluations, and they might take the advice of the early intervention service providers and their most recent evaluations on that child. So when you are going through that process, it's really important to make sure that if you are going to your local education agency for them to do evaluations, be very clear about what evaluations are they doing. Are they coming to observe your child? Do they want you to bring your child to the school and do actual observations? Or are they, Jen, just in fact borrowing the evaluations or using the evaluations from the early intervention service provider?
Yeah, and it may be that your infant or toddler has received even an outside evaluation that's quite comprehensive, so one that wasn't even done by the state agency that's providing early intervention, but maybe a private evaluation that you've funded or that your insurance funded. So you may have good data, you may have a very thorough recent evaluation, and it may make sense not to undertake a whole series of additional evaluations. What I want parents to understand, however, is that if your school district makes the decision to rely upon the testing that was done either by the state agency providing early intervention or someone else, that is made clear in the record that, in fact, the school district elected not to do their own evaluations. And it can become important down the road in case you either disagree with the conclusions they reach about whether or not your child is eligible or the program ultimately that the school district is providing. So these are one of those things you and I say, you know, in hindsight, it can be really important to know that at that transfer meeting when the child is going from the early intervention to the school district, if the school district chooses not to evaluate, good time to get that right in writing.